You're listening to the Partisan Comms Podcast.
There is a signal broadcast every second of every day through our television sets.
All right, welcome to episode 7. I'm Terrence, and today I'm joined by YouTube content creator Corsair Trainers. Sir, thank you for taking the time to do an episode with me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I've been a fan of your channel for actually a little while now, and I'm pretty excited for the opportunity to talk with you one-on-one. I guess for those not familiar with your content, Corsair's Trainer is actually a little bit more than a YouTube channel. You guys also offer firearms training classes, is that right?
Yeah, we do firearms training, self-defense, and help folks get emergency preparedness stuff together.
Do you get a lot of, is it like first-time shooters, or is it mostly people who are already familiar with firearms?
Actually, both. But some of our biggest classes have been the first time, and it's usually guys that we've trained with before, and they convince the wife and the daughters and the kids to come out. And we usually have to take the dad and set them aside and say, okay, you don't get to say nothing. And then
Right.
we show mom and the kids, and mom and the kids don't get all, really into it. But as far as big emphasis on weapon safety, what if they find, a gun laying around? But most of the kids, we don't teach nobody that's real young. So they're 14, 15 or older.
Mm-hmm.
And we show them how to use it, take some of the fear out of it, especially with some of the wives, because, they just think guns are scary. And by the end of it, they've usually had a good time and learned to be safe and not fear the tool.
And where do you usually hold your classes? I know you're in California. I don't know if you have a specific go-to facility that you direct people to, or?
Yeah, it's called California Tactical Academy. It's out in Piru. It used to be Piru Range or something like that, but a couple of years ago it got bought and they gave it a snazzy name.
Do you have any classes that are coming up that are scheduled that people might be interested in? And also, how do people sign up?
The easiest way is to get a hold of me on the emails. And then actually today I was just text messaging back and forth with another fella about setting up classes. So for this month, we haven't definitely come out yet, trying to get a schedule set for like 1 week in a month, but everybody's schedules are not matching. So if people want to see, we got the website, the Corsair Trainers website. I try to put the stuff on there. A lot of times just get a hold of me, like on the YouTube thing, the email's there. So you can just look in the about section and get a hold of me there. And then if folks give me an email, I'll add them to the list. And I don't send out all kinds of craziness. I just send out stuff. Somebody wants to know when the next class is, I put them on the email list and send them an email when the next class is.
And I'll definitely link to your website and your YouTube channel in the description for this episode so people can find you. But one of the things I wanted to kind of get into was your background. My understanding is you served in the United States Marines, and I guess my first question is, what motivated you to enlist, and what years were you active?
This is kind of a funny story. So I wanted to go in the military. I knew that. And then there was a book that was showing the Marines properly folding a flag and displaying it and being at embassies and all that good stuff. That I seen in elementary school. So I was like, wait, who are these guys? And then, of course, I found out that, Marines are the best looking, baddest guys in the entire planet. So I said, hey, I want to join that group. So come along my 17th birthday, mom signed the paperwork. And after high school, I was in boot camp at 17. Had my 18th birthday in second phase, for the people that know what that means. Yeah, so, happy 18th birthday to me. I'm in boot camp. They made me do extra push-ups and stuff. It was great. What
was that transition like, going from civilian life, from a 17-year-old into a military life?
I was shocked because I kind of ran amok as a kid. So all of a sudden, you will get up now, you will do this now. I was like, what? Okay. I mean, I had an idea it was coming, but there's a difference between this is what's they say is going to happen, and now you're in the middle of it.
Right.
I woke up one day of boot camp, I think the second or third day, standing in front of the mirror in the bathroom, and I had no idea how I got there. I just knew some dude was yelling at me.
Is it like in the movies? I mean, I've never served. So I'm an outsider looking in, so military culture is something that's always kind of interested me. But I mean, you know, it's got to be definitely a shock being thrown into that kind of environment for sure.
Yeah, the movies sometimes they get it. I mean, of course, then you know they want people to watch, so they exaggerate some stuff. Let's see. They yell, they scream, they throw things. Do they sit there and punch you in the head and stuff? No. Did I ever see a drill instructor put hands on somebody? Yeah, but he had it coming. The guy ended up not being able to breathe because the drill instructor was, grabbing him by the throat. Those of us that were not seeing anything, we agreed that he had it coming because he was a not happy person to be around. But yeah, it's like I said, some of it gets, blown out of proportion. So people go, ooh, wow. But I don't know. It's a different world. So went from 17 and turned 18. And then when I got out of boot camp and came home, everybody seemed a little odd to me. And I'm sure I was odd to them.
How so? Like it changed you or?
So, okay, here's a good story. So the ex-wife and my mom came to get me. She wasn't the wife at the time, but so they get me from boot camp, and then we had to stop for the night. So we stop at a hotel, and at about, I don't know, 5, 6 o'clock at night, I got my boots out and I started polishing them because that's what you do. And they're like, "What are you doing?"
So you had a routine.
Yeah, I was like, "I'm polishing my boots," and they're like, why?" Like, because that's what you do at this time of night. And then some interactions, with my buddies back home. They would the things they cared about, I started not caring about. And then the longer I was in the Corps, the more I realized that there's more to life than who's having the next barbecue.
Right.
If that makes sense. So.
Yeah, I mean, you end up with different priorities, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you did mentally or physically to prepare for going into boot camp at 17?
Oh, I ran all the time. I was running all the time, running. I would run to the junior high and do pull-ups on the pull-up bars and, just all the physical stuff. And then the recruiters gave us, the little pamphlet here. You want to know all this stuff? I'm like, okay, cool. But yeah, it was mostly just physical training. So
is it during boot camp that I guess recruits pick their occupational specialty, or is that like after graduation? How does it work?
Nah, before, when you sign the contract.
They just give you like a list and say pick, or?
Yeah, so you talk to the recruiter and the recruiter says, "Hey, what do you want to try to do?" And I go, "Okay, well, I want to try to do this." And then they check to see if you have the right ASVAB score and all that other good stuff to see if you qualify for the job.
So what was your occupational specialty, and like what were the roles and responsibilities for you at the time?
Well, I went in with the security forces, but in order to be security forces, I had to go through and be an 0311, which is just a rifleman in the Marine Corps. And because 03 is for all what they call grunts. So I like to say that I was the reason the rest of the Marine Corps is there, because everything else is set up to make the rifleman's job easier. So I did that, but then I had part of my contract was to go security forces. And then they said, "Hey, where do you want to go when we post you for security forces?" And I don't remember. I think we got to choose regions, but not spots. So like I said, Pacific, but I don't think I picked Guam, but that's where I ended up going. I spent a year and a half on Guam. And then after that, the security forces part of my contract was done. So then I went back to the fleet. How do I translate that? The big Marine Corps, right? Mm-hmm. Where the normal Marine Corps stuff you see. And then I was with Alpha 1-4 did a deployment, a Westpac, which means we go all over the Pacific.
So you get to see the world just like in the commercials.
Yeah, we were in the Pacific, we were in Africa, we went to Australia, all that fun stuff. I got to meet some interesting people in Somalia, and that was groovy. And then
did that like change your worldview at all?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So okay, here, and this isn't Somalia, but we were sitting off the coast of Somalia, and actually the group I was with, we got relieved by the guys that everybody saw on CNN that were coming ashore, and CNN was standing right there with the cameras on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, but while we were waiting, we how do I say it? We got ready to go in and take over the port, like, I don't know, 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
We actually started heading in, and then whoever makes the decisions, you know, in DC or wherever, pulled us back each and every time, which, like, okay, great. But in the meantime, our boat, the Ogden, was the only one that was fast enough. We'd run down to Kenya and pick up mail and some whatever other supplies or whatever personnel needed picking up. And then we'd run them back to the larger group of boats. Try not to use all the abbreviations. So we were going into Mombasa, Kenya. And this is one of those, you know, moments or whatever. So I'm up on the second deck, and we can see, like, we're only, I don't know, maybe 100 yards away from the shore. And there's houses there, and there's, you know, streets there, and there's cars there. And it looks like a small town USA next to a river. Right. And I see a car pull up, and the doors open and kids start running around, and it was like a clown car. There had to be, you know, 5 or 6 kids packed in the back seat and everything. And mom gets out of the driver's seat, and she starts hooting and hollering. And I did not speak Swahili, so I don't know what she was saying, but I didn't need a translator. Because you know what mom's saying when she's trying to get the groceries out of the car and the kids
right.
are running around, right? And she
a little
got
bit
all
of
the
a
kids
universal
to grab some
language, I
groceries.
guess.
Say again?
A little bit of a universal language, I guess, right?
Yeah. And she ended up smacking a couple of them upside the head. And, you know, I'm like, wow, I could see that at home on any given day. And she went walking in and was, you know, like a herd of cats trying to get all the kids to go in. And then a fellow that was sitting out there on a stoop in a chair, he hollered at the boys, and they straightened up, and they all ran inside. And the only thing that would make that not Anytown, USA is the fellow that finally yelled at him to help her out. He was in an army uniform and was sitting there with an AK across his lap. So, but I mean, other than that, that made me realize, like, man, people are people. You know, it doesn't matter where I'm at. I'm all the way over here in Africa, and I could see that at home.
Right. I mean, being so young, though, I mean, you entered at 17. I mean, is it weird going in there and having people be a lot older? I mean, is it hard to kind of earn respect when you're so young, or do people just not care and, you know, you're there with them?
I never had an issue with older folks. I always hung out with older folks. Like, even when I went into school, I was always the youngest because of where my birthday laid in the year. And so my mom had that option of having me wait 1 year or go ahead and go in, and she'd go ahead and send me to school. So I was always around older kids growing up. I was always around older people growing up. I never really had any issues with it.
Were you married while you were in the Marines, or was that after?
I got married when we were on Guam.
So how do you, when you're getting deployed all over the place, you know, how do you balance your military life and your personal life?
That was one of the reasons I got out, because my oldest son, he was actually born on Guam. And when we got back stateside, and then I deployed, and then I had to do training, and I was at division schools for a while, and I had to go do all this other stuff. I just wasn't seeing them. I'm like, I never see you guys. So that was one of the reasons that I ended up getting out of the Corps, because I was like, I'd like to see my kids.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, I'm sure that's hard being away from family all the time, and, you know, depending on what's going on in the world at the moment. I mean, you could catch a
Well, I
ride
got
with,
out in '93. There wasn't anything going on way back in '93.
I mean, like I said before, I've never served in the military, so my concept of what the military is like really just comes from people I've talked to who have served, and of course, you know, you right now. But I guess one of the reasons I'm kind of more interested in military culture now that I'm older than, you know, probably previously is, I guess I pay a little bit more attention to the news now, especially when I see articles, you know, about noteworthy like policy or cultural changes for the military. For instance, one of the ones I was reading recently, it was a Zero Hedge article about diversity, equity, and inclusion training in the military. And it talked about a survey that was conducted recently, and it included like 229 participants from all branches of the military, and somewhere around 80% of those surveyed said they had been required to participate in DEI training. I'm not sure how long the military's been doing that, or if like how new the introduction of DEI training is to the military, but during your service, were you required to participate in anything like that?
Not really. I mean, we had our like training, formal, informal. Like we had to, everybody stood down. How do I translate that? Nobody worked one day, and we all had to have a great big meeting and a presentation about not sexually harassing female Marines or Navy personnel and stuff like that. But no, we didn't have anything like I hear they're having now. I mean, but even back then, we had people promoted for reasons other than their abilities, if that makes sense.
Right.
And I don't know, back then, yeah, like in the Marine Corps, you were green. Everybody was green. And if you needed to describe somebody, like if you said, I don't know, Private Johnson, right? And you could have 4 Private Johnsons and they all look different. And if you wanted to say dark green, well, that meant a black guy. Light green, that meant a white guy. The race thing in the Marine Corps really wasn't an issue. Like I don't know, back then we didn't see it like that, I guess. So I don't know. I hear nowadays they make a much bigger deal of it and all that other stuff. And it's just a shame because back then we were all Marines. That was it. I mean, I was in before they even had name tags on our uniforms. So I remember the first formation we had when they put the name tags above the pockets now that says, you know, U.S. Marine and whatever your last name is. And that came from reporters and stuff not being able to know the difference between us.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah,
we were in Kuwait. This is after the war. We were in Kuwait, and a news reporter was talking to us, and they were really confused about, you know, who was who, because if you said, hey, like at one point they said, hey, can that guy come over here and talk to us? And we just said, hey, Corporal, come here. And they're like, doesn't he have a name? We're like, yeah, that's Corporal so-and-so, but we just say Corporal. And they're like confused that we would just call ourselves by our rank, and that if anybody asked who we are or what we are, we just say we're a Marine.
I guess it makes it difficult to write an article that way, right?
Yeah, and I don't know, I guess they were in the other branches, I guess, you know, everybody's Joe and Bob or whatever, but for us, no, it was your rank and last name, you know, or somebody just yell your rank out. So I don't know, there just wasn't a focus on stuff like that, you know, other than behaving ourselves properly. So I don't know.
Well, I figured you guys probably had, you know, like sexual harassment training, all that stuff. I guess one of the things that just kind of jumped out to me was one of the people that took the survey, they described the training as like, you know, the typical barrage of sexual harassment training. But one of the things this participant said was that throughout their career, they had noted that the training was kind of growing increasingly woke.
Yeah.
And it made me wonder, I mean, do you think that like a divide could exist between, you know, like the values of military personnel and those running the Department of Defense?
Well, I mean, there's always a divide between the high up guys in DC, or even the higher up guys in a headquarters section or something like that, and your average guy on the ground. Um, they have a lot more time to think about that stuff. They're a lot more politically minded, especially if somebody's trying to grab rank and move up. But for, a guy down there and working in a section or in his squad or just with his platoon or whatever, there's not a whole lot of time for that. You're doing other stuff, it's not at least it wasn't emphasized at all. We were all the same. We were all worthless and we all had to go do the same damn job.
I mean, do you think programs like that, do they have a positive or a negative impact on the military's readiness, or do you think it's just something that is probably not a big deal over time?
No, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. There's no place for that at that level and in that environment, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not gonna I don't care if the guy next to me fits all the boxes they say he needs to fit to be in a special category. Mm-hmm. I want to know, can he pull his weight and do what we need to do when we need to do it? And that's it.
One of the things I was kind of just wondering was that, if programs like that kind of create an environment where some people get preferential treatment, perhaps. I mean, I don't know, never been in those situations, but reading through the article, it did make me think of that. But I don't know, it seems like some of the ways woke ideology might be creeping into military culture is through the university level. For example, not too long ago, and I think this has been around for several years now, so it's probably nothing new, but sometime back in 2015, there was an article from the Army Times, and it was called Walk a Mile in Her Shoes. And the event was intended to raise awareness for like sexual assault victims, and it was created by this ROTC program at Temple University. And basically these cadets, they walked a mile in their BDUs and they wore high heels. And I know ROTC programs, that's not the military, it's not the same thing, but it seems a certain ideology is being kind of instilled in some of those cadets who intend on enlisting in the future. And some of those people might be important military decision makers later on. What do you think that type of dogma, like how do you think that will impact the direction of, the military of the future?
Well, I would take it a step further, I guess, maybe back the view out some more from that. You have to remember that the military's a cross-section of the society that it's in. So if society's pushing those kind of concepts right now, the military's naturally going to lean that direction, and it's going to have people in it that lean that direction, simply because, again, that's where people come from the society that the military's in. I don't think it's a good thing at all. And it's not, I don't care, even when I was in, if how do I say it? If a dude had preferences for folks other than what were mine, I didn't care. Don't advertise it. Don't bring it over here. And can you do the job? Does that make sense?
Right.
But yeah, I guess it will be a bad thing if they take, as they are, I guess, hours out of positive training to do that kind of stuff. And what do I mean by that? Getting more fit, getting more knowledge, spending more time at the range, the things that they are actually going to need if they're called to do something.
I don't know if you saw this, you probably did, but recently it's that airman that had set himself on fire in front of the embassy in Washington, D.C. Did you see that in the news?
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
I mean, what do you make of that? I mean, I know throughout our history there have been numerous examples where, you know, like active duty military or some veterans, they've voiced opposition to, you know, a conflict. I mean, I guess past examples would be like protests during the Vietnam War. And there's also been, I guess, a long list of civilians who have used self-immolation as a method of protest. But I could be wrong, but I think this might be the first time that someone who was active duty did it in uniform. I mean, when you see a situation like that, you know, what goes through your mind?
That person probably had some sort of mental issue that didn't get noticed to begin with. But again, that goes back to what I was saying a minute ago. The military is made up of, you know, a cross section of society. So he obviously has been raised a certain way and has certain beliefs and believes in those enough that he thought his action would make a difference. And if you hear me pausing when I'm talking, it's because I'm trying not to curse.
You're welcome to curse. You're good.
Yeah, no, if I said my thoughts on that guy a different way, it would just be one curse word after another. It's utterly ridiculous. And for him to think his self-mutilation was going to make a difference in the big picture, again, he either had some sort of mental issue or he's been sold a bill of goods that he's about to find out isn't true. You know, I mean, the big wigs that make the big decisions, they don't care that little Airman Joe decided to go set himself on fire. You know, they'll be like, all right, everybody sit down. We're going to have a discussion on don't set yourself on fire. All right, we did that. Right. Move on, you know.
What does that do to morale, do you think?
Two things. So for the grunts out there, they go, oh, an Air Force desk writing guy set himself on fire. and I know that sounds harsh, but you know, welcome to the life of a grunt. For the guys in his command, you know, sure, it's going to have some effect on them, especially if they're buddies or whatever. But again, in the big scale of it, it was meaningless. You know, it's not going to. His buddy Joe or Bob or Fred or whatever may be upset that, you know, little Timmy set himself on fire, but the guy in the next section's not going to care, other than he's going to have to sit down for 2 hours and have a talking to about don't set yourself on fire and don't do political stuff in uniform, or don't do political stuff and identify yourself as a member of this squadron or whatever, you know?
Yeah, from talking to other people who have been in the military, my understanding at least was that it was a little bit taboo to do political things in uniform.
Oh, it's not taboo. It's completely against the rules. The UCMJ, you can't do any of it in uniform. Not while you're active duty or reserve or any of that. Only once you're completely out can you, like, you know, put a uniform top on and say you're protesting or something. But right. Before then, you can't. You can go to jail for it.
I guess one of the reasons that I don't know, pay attention to stuff like that is because I often wonder, like, are some of these things that we see, like, are they like a bellwether for, you know, like a society in decline? I don't know if you're into reading about history or not. It's something I enjoy learning about, but one of my favorite subjects is the Roman Empire. And prior to this episode, I covered some of the symptoms of the decline of, like, Rome, and partially focused on the decline of their military. But one of the issues that contributed to the weakening of their military was a decline in recruitment as well as morale. And I don't know, it seems like our military has been dealing with a decline in recruitment and retention over the last, I guess, few years. And it does seem like our government also at times overextends our military by deploying them to various areas around the world rather frequently. I don't know, do you think eventually we would kind of suffer a similar fate that the Romans experienced, where we kind of continue to miss recruitment goals? This results in, you know, kind of our country losing its edge and credibility as a global power? Or do you think our military is just so vast that it would take, you know, decades to even get there?
Okay, that's a big one. Let me unpack
It's a
that.
lot to
Yes.
unpack.
Yeah. Yes, I am a history buff and closet sociologist.
Excellent. You've come to the right place then.
Yes, there are parallels to the Roman military and its decline. The biggest parallel I'd point out is when they want to take, let's see, people who freshly migrated from other countries and to allow them to go straight into the military, which is a thing they've been throwing around. The Romans, once they stopped having citizens be the only way to get into the military, as in not the auxiliaries, but the actual legions,
Mm-hmm.
there was a great decline because, you know, guy's not fighting for Rome. He's fighting for wherever he came from.
Right.
That makes sense. He doesn't have the same upbringing. He doesn't have the same, dare I say the word patriotism or loyalty to the nation. Does that make sense? So if it comes to a, you know, I got to lay it on the line kind of thing, maybe they don't want to do that. Maybe they decide to take option 2 and just skedaddle, you know? Let's see, what else was in there? The over deployment of folks. Yes, the last 20 years was way too long. That should have been wrapped up way sooner. Way sooner. The way it was wrapped up was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, just I can't even think of words other than curse words to say that. But you also got to remember, going back to what I was saying before, right now, like the not being able to reach the recruitment goals, you can see it 2 ways. The first way is society as a whole is saying, you know, military bad. And there's a whole host of reasons for that I won't get into. But so it's going to decline similar to it did, say, in the 70s and 80s, you know, because after the 60s and, you know, everybody's a baby killer,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have as much recruitment, but they had higher quality people. So the flip side of that would be, yeah, the military may get smaller, but there's a chance they may get better because, you know, less money has to be spread out, more training for the guys that are there. I don't know. So I'm on the fence, but hopeful it's the latter and not the, you know, nobody's going to sign up thing.
I mean, how long do you think we could really, our empire can really go overstretching itself? I mean, even the Romans, they ran out of money and basically. Go ahead.
Okay, so I got to stop you before you keep going with that. So the word empire, we're not an empire.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, the Romans started out as, you know, a city state, and it just kind of blew up from there.
Right. So I mean, if you take the word empire, right, that's they're trying to expand, they're trying to take more, they're trying to physically hold on to more ground. We're not really doing that. I know people like to say that, and it's.
I guess the reason I use that word is because, you know, I do see a lot of parallels with Rome, but
oh no, I do too.
I think that I guess a lot of our detractors, you know, people who are adversaries would probably accuse us of being imperialist or being an empire like the Romans were. I mean, we have different goals, of course.
My counter to that comment, if somebody was to make that, is what haven't we given back? Does that make sense? So in, you know, there's a few places, well, like one, Guam, we never gave that back. Puerto Rico, we never gave back. So there, you know, people will say there's those spots. Okay, cool. And then here comes the but. We didn't keep a bunch of the stuff that we got from the Japanese. We didn't keep a bunch of the stuff we got from the Germans. We're not in the habit of keeping stuff. Yeah, we go in places, we do things, then we leave. And it's kind of been like that forever. You know, we're not conquering new territories and trying to expand in the way an empire would be trying to expand.
Right. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, the Romans that was one of their goals. They wanted to expand the borders of their empire as far as they could.
Yeah, and I mean, going with the parallels of that, yeah, I mean, the Roman society, basically, they had the external pressures, but they also collapsed from the inside. So the getting away from actually the doing, if that makes sense. A lot of the Roman citizens, they had time to sit around and get their free bread and go watch the circuses because they weren't actually doing anything to support the empire, if that makes sense.
That would have been a hell of a time to be alive to, watch those people in action. So following your military career, you made another transition, and this time it was from your military life and back into a civilian life. And you started working for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. And so when you were near the end of your military service, did you know what you wanted to do afterwards?
Yeah, well, okay, so here's the thing with with working in the BOP, Bureau of Prisons. There's very few people that say, "Hey, when I grow up, I want to go work in a prison," right? Um, so I'm from Lompoc. It's a small town out here in California, but the U.S. Penitentiary in Lompoc is in Lompoc. So I knew the place was there and all that good stuff. And when I was getting out, I needed a job because by then I had a wife and 2 kids. So a friend of mine, she was working in the HR department out there, and she said, "Hey, they're hiring." And I'm like, "Hey, I need a job." So when I first got into we just call it the BOP. When I first got into it, it was a temporary thing. I wasn't planning on staying there. I was planning on getting the job there, and I had applications in for LAPD, place up in Oregon. I had sent stuff in for Las Vegas. There was a couple other places too, but I can't remember. That was so long ago now. So it originally was just a stepping stone, a way station till I could go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. So what ultimately made you decide, you were going to make a go of it?
Two things. So, but just to keep with the comedic aspect of this, I walked into the penitentiary at 21 years old.
Oh, wow.
I was the youngest human being for a few years to be walking the corridors there. So at one point, everybody called me youngster, to include our guest. And I didn't care because I was the youngster compared to everybody there.
What's the average age of people that actually end up working in the prison system? Are these guys like in their 30s or?
No, it's changed now. When I was retiring, we would get young, fresh-faced, never had a job before, but they got that little degree from a college that says they could get a job working in a prison. And they would come walking in all just full of all kinds of happiness, and then they would meet me as their first supervisor. Yeah, so we get college kids that never had a job before that would just show up and, they know everything about everything. So right. Back when I first started, most folks were in their 30s. A lot of people, they call it double dipping, where a guy would get out of the military and then go get a government job. So there was a lot of those dudes. Yeah, most guys were at least 5 or 6 years older than I was, late 20s, early 30s.
I assume the Marines kind of prepared you for that environment to some extent, right? I mean, was it a tough transition to jump back into being a civilian after, serving, 4 years as a Marine?
Oh, I'm still not used to being a civilian. I still get annoyed at stuff. I have to make myself try not to be 15 minutes early everywhere, because if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. Just a lot of stuff like that just kind of sticks with you. And then, going and working in prison, then there's a whole other set of things that you're just like, so the me interacting with civilians is always fun.
So how many years did you do that? Because you're retired now, right?
Yeah, I was in the BOP for 25 years.
So how did you cope with the, I guess, mental demands of working in a high stress environment like that? I mean, where some of the inmates may potentially pose a threat to you, you know, at any given moment.
I don't, I, good and bad, I guess. I mean, the biggest thing is you got to have something. You have to have something besides work that you do. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The guys that their whole life was work, they would have issues. I was from Lompoc, so I was back home. So I got to, you know, hang out with my buddies and all that good stuff, and had family and all that stuff there. Um, and then I've always like done martial arts stuff and reading, and you know, I mean, it sounds simple, but getting home from work and opening a book up and reading it is a good, like, you know, de-stressor from dealing with all that stuff. But I mean, sometimes there's just nothing you can do, because you go from, especially when I was at the penitentiary, you go from high stress craziness, not exaggerating, you know, not hyperbole or whatever, making decisions that, you know, people are living and dying over, to you go home and somebody wants to know why you left your socks sitting in the floor in the bedroom. You're like, really, man? That really matters? You know, the blood on me is not mine, but there's still blood all over me, you know? So, yeah, that's a question. Working out, going, I used to run all the damn time. Yeah, it's not, I don't know. That's a hard question for me to answer right there, I guess.
How do you guys, I don't know, handle conflict when people, you know, maybe get violent, you know, in a facility? I mean, how do you de-escalate something like that, or can you?
Yeah, no, and I mean, honestly, you want to try to de-escalate things if you can, because when we get going, it's not the same as how do I say it? People could die once we start mixing it up, if that makes sense. And you'll find that on both sides of the fence, either us or, you know, our guest. If there's a way to do it that it doesn't have to come to physical violence and everybody can save face, then that will probably be the answer. But sometimes you just got to, I don't know how else to say it besides throw down, you know?
I would imagine that over time you've probably would develop a rapport with people that have been there a long time. So I would think maybe de-escalation would be a little bit more possible in that scenario, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, and yes, you get a working relationship with guys, and I use the word working relationship because you have to watch out.
You're not
and
friends,
you can't have
right?
a relationship, you know? And you see people getting caught up in that. But anyway, yeah, and then I mean, plus you get a reputation, and your reputation follows you, and they tell each other. So if you're no nonsense and they know that you will take it there, then they might say, okay, cool, you know, I'm good, if that makes sense.
So
Trying to say it with,
when you were in the Marines, you know, I asked you, like, did those deployments kind of challenge your worldview? Did you experience kind of a similar thing here where, you know, you're around all of these, you know, people who are incarcerated now, and like, did any of that really like challenge your worldview at the time? Did it change you in any way, or, you know, maybe even challenge some of your values perhaps?
yeah, if I said it didn't, I'd be lying to you. Anybody that's done it for as long as I did it and tries to say it didn't, either they weren't doing the job or they're lying. I don't know how to say that, but yeah, I realized there is pure evil in the world, like just unabashed. I don't know, just evil, like just fucking evil, dude. I don't know how else to say that.
I mean, are some of those people that are in there, like, you know, that are serving time, I mean, are some of them just good people that got crossed with the law as well? Or is it just...
Oh, yeah. And that's a standard question. Yeah, there's dudes that they just made a mistake, right?
Right.
They just screwed something up. And then on the other side of that,
There's some monsters.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. And I'm glad that they are locked up and not walking amongst people. Although from time to time I see some of them out there, but yeah, it's just there's and I know it's hard for people to, everybody wants to root for the bad guy, I guess, nowadays. And oh, his mommy didn't hug him enough or something. And no, I don't mean those dudes. I mean, there's dudes that are just fucking evil, and there's just no other way of describing it. They're just fucking evil, and if we can't get rid of them, then we need to keep them behind a fence somewhere.
Well, one of the kind of the reasons for me asking that specific question, we'll get to this in a little bit. It's more of kind of like a situational awareness question. So, I mean, over time, you certainly developed an awareness to read the difference between someone that just got cross with the law and someone that's an actual monster. I know it probably takes several years to kind of like get to that point where you're like, okay, I can get a good read on this guy. But I mean, is there anything that, I don't know, when you're teaching self-defense classes or firearms training where you talk about situational awareness, where you say, hey, like, here's a technique or some things that I learned that might work for you?
Yeah, I think the biggest one that I see people, okay, two things that I see people not doing, and even like when I started the YouTube channel, it was one of the first subjects I decided to cover was just awareness. And by being aware, I mean looking around. So you'll try this after I say this and you'll go, what? Because everybody does that actually gives this a try. When you're in a restaurant or you're in some kind of group setting where there's a lot of people, even like, walking through the store or something like that, have your head up and we used to call it panning and scanning. Be looking around and actively looking. And by actively looking, I mean not just with a glossy glaze over your eyeballs like you're in bed, right? But actually looking and looking at people and looking at things. And you will notice that there's few, but there are other people that do it. And you'll go, wait a minute, that dude's doing it. And then you'll notice that the most people that do it, I'm not saying it's exclusive, but the most people that do it are good and bad guys. Because they're, we used to call it the game. You're in the game, right? So you're alert, you're paying attention because you should be, and you'll see, and they're either a good guy or a bad guy. And it's funny because I tell people to do that and then they do it and they're like, hey, wait a minute, I did notice that most people aren't looking around and there was only me and this other guy or gal, because don't think gals aren't in the game either. So
Well, a little while ago, I was, I mean, in preparation for this, I mean, I think I've watched every one of your videos. But before that, I, had been watching them for some time, and I do like the ones about situational awareness. And that actually kind of changed the way that I pay attention in public, actually. And, it was kind of funny. A minute ago, you said, well, if you pay attention to people, you'll see who's paying attention to you. And, I was actually at a restaurant not too long ago, and I was just kind of looking around the room, and there was one other guy that was just doing the same thing, looking at everyone. And, I was like, huh, it's real. I don't know if he was a, good person or a bad one, but he was certainly paying attention to everyone.
Yeah. No, it happens all. I was at martial arts training thing, and after all the training, everybody was in the restaurant, and then we were in the bar hanging out, and I was just doing what I do. And after the third time that me and another dude looked at each other, I walked over to him. I said, hey, what agency you with? And he looked at me like, oh shit. And I said, nah, dude, I'm in federal prisons. He's like, oh. And he was what was he? I think he was an Ohio State trooper. He was either Iowa or Ohio, one of the two. And he's like, how did you know? I said, well, and he was a younger guy. So I said, well, there, young officer, you were looking around and there was only two of us doing it in here. So I had to come see which team you were on.
Do you frequently walk up to people and ask them directly, or do you?
No, in that setting, he had been there with the group that I was training with, and plus he stunk of cop, so it wasn't hard to figure out. So I knew I wasn't probably walking up to a gangbanger asking that.
So I know, after watching a lot of your content, one of the other themes of your YouTube channel is about always working to improve your position. And it's not just with prepping, but like survival skills and really kind of, I guess, through all aspects of life. And I think part of a person's ability to improve is highlighted by, where they derive their values from. I guess my question to you is, where do you stand in the values spectrum? Do you have a particular belief system that you've developed over your lifetime? And if so, how did you get there?
Yeah, so my belief system's pretty simple. Be a good person. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I value personal honor and integrity. Integrity is a big thing for me. Not being a lying douche, which is, kind of got me in trouble in YouTube land, because I've actually confronted some people who are just frauds.
We're going to dig into that too.
Yeah, I can't stand that stuff. I mean, I grew up Mormon, which is probably funny as hell when you see me smoking and cursing and doing everything else. But so yeah, I grew up Mormon, probably from, I don't know, about, I think it was 10 or 11 or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it never stuck. And then, my personal beliefs are my own. I don't go to any like regulated church or nothing like that.
Sure.
But I don't know where I gotta think about this. Where did I get it? It's gonna sound silly, but like the Boy Scouts,
That makes sense.
when they tell you this is how you do this, and then the biggest obvious one is the Marine Corps. Duty, honor, all that good stuff. I'll say the abbreviation, but I can't remember it all. It's the JJ tie buckle. How to be a decent human being, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that answers I wasn't expecting that question, so you caught me sideways on that one.
Is there, anything that you personally do kind of like daily, weekly, or even on a monthly basis, essentially just to improve your life, even if it's something small?
Oh yeah. I read a lot, and I will read bizarre things that people go, what? Like, I don't know. I got into like 2 or 3 years ago, I got into string theory.
Oh, really?
I can't do it now, but back then I could have a conversation on string theory because I got into it and I read all about it. I'm always doing things to, I don't know, mentally, I guess, figure things out. And I got that. How do I say it? I read the stuff that people that don't like me write. So I'll read what people that have different beliefs, different ideas of how the world works. I'll sit down and read what they're.
That's a good habit to have, though. I mean, not a lot of people do that. Well, I don't want to speak in absolutes, but it seems like a lot of people are in kind of their own little echo chambers these days, especially online.
Yeah, I stay out of echo chambers if I can. In fact, if I find myself in, I'll usually tell them, you guys are just full of shit. But I read a lot. I'm looking over here at the books on the shelf to see if there's anything in particular. No, that's pretty much all the prepper kind of stuff there. Yeah, I've been trying to fix myself after my back decided it didn't want to work anymore. So I've been trying to do that every day. And this is going to sound silly. I've been trying to play nicer with others.
That's always a good habit to try and improve.
Yeah, well, somewhere between growing up in the Marine Corps and then being in prison for as long as I was, the playing nice with others things wasn't always, my top priority. So now that I'm out here in suburbia and I do the whole, soccer mom thing, take the kids to school and all that other good stuff, I have to work on saying like, hi, how you doing? I hope your day was good,
Right.
because that's what's expected. So I'm like, okay, I got to work on that. Um, I've been lately, the last 2 or 3 years, I've been trying to figure out how the stock market works.
That's a tough
Which,
one. Yeah.
yeah.
That one's a little confusing at times.
So I've been sitting down, and no, I will not tell anybody what stocks to buy, but I sat down and just read everything I could, and been messing with that. Yeah, and just gardening. That was, well, if you saw, well, no, I took down the gardening videos. I've been learning to garden to improve our position. If everything goes sideways, at least I have an idea of what I'm doing. I'm not any good
Right.
at it, but
Well, that stuff takes time. I mean, there's a lot of people who, I've seen on YouTube, they have almost kind of like farming type videos, and that stuff is hard. It's hard to get good at that. It's not easy.
I've been trying. That was one thing is, I mean, I have my wheelhouse of subjects that I'm good with, but going through and trying to figure stuff out for the family and everything else, you can only put so much away. And then at some point you go, okay, what if? And I got to that, okay, what if things went way sideways and we had to figure out our own food? Well, I don't know how to grow anything.
Got a lot of bags of rice stored.
Yeah. But so no, I mean that was something I did today. I was out there pulling weeds out of the garden and stuff to improve. Um, yeah, I don't know. I do stuff all the time, and I really don't think of it in a, okay, I'm doing this to improve. It's just the way I do things. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Well, one of the things I'm kind of fascinated by is, speaking of YouTube, is the variety of prepping channels out there. And there aren't many other platforms where I guess fantasy prepping and real world prepping collide. And, for instance, over the years, there's been no shortage of, videos suggesting one should prepare for, things like FEMA camps or that Jade Helm exercise, which, people were telling their audience that it was this military exercise intended to, condition the public to this idea of seeing military forces on the streets. And I guess the intent was so people wouldn't realize like an invasion was taking place. There's also all these numerous videos about Red Dawn style scenarios, and a lot of other just exotic prepping scenarios that, I don't know, they've been pushed on people ad nauseum over the last, few years. But, there's a few content creators, you're one of them. That's why I like your channel a lot, that, you focus on real world stuff. Everything like having situational awareness, like we talked about, or ways to try and insulate yourself from crime in your area, or, dealing with civil unrest, prepping for unemployment, natural disasters, or what human nature might look like in certain situations. But because there's such a mix of fantasy and real world content, do you ever get frustrated or even discouraged watching certain channels, kind of push these fear porn scenarios?
Yes. So part of the thing when I retired, and me and some other fellows I worked with and stuff, we're like, hey, we noticed something when we were working. So, okay, I come from the military law enforcement background, but if you watch a lot of the videos and stuff and you watch some of our training, it's really not, I don't come at it from that. Can I sit down with these guys and have these conversations that they're having?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but remember how we were saying echo chamber? All right, let me sit in the echo chamber. Rah, rah, rah. That's not my point. So we were at work. There was us old timers. I use that word loosely because I consider other people old timers and not me. And we had these youngsters. We're like, how do we bring the rookies? Because I ran a tactical team. I was on tactical teams the whole 25 years I was in, but I ran one for 15 years. And the issue we had was, how do we get the guys with no experience, no training? How do we get them up to speed because we might have to do something right now or, you know, tomorrow. So me and the older guys on the team, we got together, we started trying to figure stuff out. And then, you know, as we were doing this and the world keeps going around the sun and we see things happening out in the real world, we're like, okay, so how do we take what we know and get it to the regular folks who need it more than we do because we already know it? If that makes sense, right? So in my illustrious little career, besides being a corrections officer, I was one of the first intel officers in the Bureau of Prisons and get to deal with all that. And then being on the emergency response teams, I got plenty of experience in real world emergency responses. And then I was the emergency preparedness officer off and on for the 15 years at the joint I was at before I retired. And I was in the emergency preparedness sphere at work. Hell, I accomplished all of the FEMA classes that FEMA offered, you know, the home study things or whatever, right? With the exception of 2 or 3 that the titles just threw me off. But anyway, so I have real world experience. At times in my career, I was responsible for, you know, 2,000 people, good and bad folks. And I had to figure out how to clothe, shelter, food, get medical care for all these people. I mean, I've sit down and written plans that, you know, they're 50 pages long. So where am I saying all that? I'm not saying that to blow my horn because I really hate sounding like I'm blowing my horn. But then you come to YouTube land. So before I retired, I would watch, you know, the regular guys on YouTube. It wasn't like a thing, if that makes sense. You know, you'd see the fella from up north and some of the other big name ones, and they would pop up and I'd be like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. But then once I tried to use YouTube as a way to say, hey, we're doing some training if you guys want to come see, right? YouTube opened up the world of preppers to me. I'm doing such a good job of talking nice right now. And I was flabbergasted by self-proclaimed gurus who, when you would look, and I have to paraphrase that by saying, don't piss the guy off that'll go look you up. So there was some gurus out there that, you know, they simply, because of the timing of when they started their channel, had the subs and got the views and all that other good stuff, right? Hopefully that's making sense. But when you actually dig into who they are and what experience they have and what knowledge they should have, they don't have any of it. And they just make it up as they go along. I don't like that because they're taking advantage of, and he's using big air quotes right now, normal people. These ass clowns tell them, what's the word I'm looking for? Bullshit. And it infuriates me.
Some of it, I mean, some of the stuff that I've seen is some of it's like really sensational and over the top. You know, one in particular that comes to mind is this one content creator was basically encouraging their audience to max out their credit cards and go buy, you know, like preps and stuff. And that's pretty predatory.
Well, I found that yes, and I know which one you're talking about. I won't say names. Yes, that was an example that everybody could go, huh?
Right.
The biggest issue I found was people will say things and they can't tell you why. That makes sense. You need to buy this. Well, why do I need to buy that? And they can't answer it, or they'll just give you some bullshit answer, you know?
Why do you think those channels are, you know, that kind of like push this sort of fear-based skies falling content? Why do you think they're so popular? I mean, do people just want to be entertained, or do you think people are actually taking some of this stuff seriously?
So I actually, I don't know, without saying names, I had a blow up with a couple of the bigger channels because I straight called them on their bullshit, right? Without saying names. one fella who thinks he's some kind of medical guru now was playing some game of putting a tourniquet on. And I'm like, hey, man, you're going to get people hurt doing that, right? And in his false bravado bullshit, I don't see your video, so I did a video. Here's your video, man. This is how you do it. This is how you do it for reals, right? And the idea of them getting people hurt by showing them the wrong way to do it really pisses me off. Where was I going with that? I was going somewhere with that. So the fantasy thing, I've actually, after I had a blowout with that moron and a couple of the other, they're just con men. I don't know how else to say it. They're just running con games on people. And I don't like that. That's going back to, you know, where you said my moral standards are and stuff like that. I don't like seeing people being taken advantage of. So I would point to somebody and say, that dude's a con man. And people don't want to hear it because they're feeding them what they want to hear. So I had a couple people who we actually, if I said names, you would know who they are, that I talked to outside of YouTube land. And they said, hey, man, that's what people want. They want the fantasy. They want to be told that some mythical event's going to take place and their life is going to change. Or they want confirmation that those other people are fucked up and they're not, you know?
Right.
And I guess I don't see the world that way. So I wasn't getting it. That and it's regardless of what dividing line. You could say politics, you could say geography, whatever. But there's sheep on both sides, and the sheep want the shepherd to tell them that they're super cool and good things are going to happen to just them. And I don't live that way. I don't see the world that way. So, you know, some of these folks, I had some long conversations with people, and I'm like, I don't fucking get it. And they're like, yeah, stupid, you're not going to get it because you don't see the world the way these other people do, right? My issue with that is, okay, they see the world that way, but the guy who is feeding them the fear porn, the guy who, you know, every day comes out and said, hey, the world's going to end in 3 days, the world's going to end in a week. They're taking advantage of the other people. And that makes me mad because grandma is sending this dude, you know, $1, $10, whatever it is, she's sending to him every month because she wants to support this guy. Well, this guy at the end of the day, he's just stealing money from grandma because he's feeding her full of shit. There was one guy who, I won't say his name, he actually had to do a whole group of videos going, oh, I'm sorry that I said all you people in the cities were going to die and that some of the older folks got upset because I gave them no hope. Let me give you some hope now. Basically, don't take away the money you're sending me. You could take the big garbage cans and fill them full of dirt and they will stop vehicles and bullets. That might help. I'm like, hey, man, you are so full of shit, dude.
Well, for a long time, I mean, there were, a few channels, you know, talking about that exact thing, saying, you know, abandon the city. And then I think you made this point in one of your videos that later it became, you know, you're stupid if you move to a rural area, essentially. Yes. And so a lot of these channels that do this, you know, that kind of do this predatory thing, that they all seem to have the same arc where they'll start out talking about prepping, and then I guess when they run out of material, they get into the, you know, fear-based stuff, and you know, they'll start taking news articles, and then what they'll do is they'll overvalue certain data points or news stories to support, you know, whatever pre-existing belief they want to give you. And, you know, a lot of it really is that fantasy SHTF stuff like Red Dawn, or, you know, people pushing mutual assistance groups for the Boogaloo.
Yeah.
But,
well, so recently, you know, we've had the plague came through, right? We had social unrest. We've had people will call it a tyrannical government installed. I prefer to say a socialist coup. We've had all these things, and in the just over 5 years that I've been on YouTube, from when, not, you know, I'd watch it before, but from when I started the channel, and like I said, I was exposed to all these other people because YouTube thought I'd get along with them. A lot of those channels have done what you said. They've changed what they were doing, and or they've died out because people were like, you remember when everybody was talking about solar flares a couple of years ago, and every
Right.
solar flare we had to fear.
Yeah, it was going to be the next Carrington event.
Right. And to me, if these guys are into preparedness or, you know, survival or emergency preparedness, the very tenet of all of that is to feel secure, to not be in fear, right? So going back to Boy Scouts, the first time I did a wilderness survival thing in the Boy Scouts, they were like, okay, the first thing you got to do is don't be scared. Like, huh? Like, yeah, get past the scared part so you can make good decisions. So all these guys saying that, you know, I am an expert because I'm going to get rude for a minute. I'm an expert because I live in a shack and I have 2 chickens out back. So I'm a survival expert. And then they want to feed you fear. Well, no, bro, you don't even know the first step of survival, emergency preparedness, or any of that, because having the skills and the knowledge should make it so you're not fearful. I mean, yes, you're going to be scared if suddenly you're in the woods, but you know, hey, I need to get past that. So the ones that feed the most fear are actually the ones with the least amount of knowledge and running the biggest con game out of everybody else, if that makes sense.
I had a really good friend when I lived in California. I don't live there anymore, but he was really into really all the YouTube prepping channels, you know, subscribed to all the big ones, was really just really into it. He'd annoyingly text me, you know, links to them and stuff. And one day I was over at his house and we were just kind of, you know, shooting the shit. And he's like, oh, did you see what I got? I'm like, no, what'd you get? And he had purchased, probably not a bad thing to have, I guess, you know, in hindsight, but this entire set of like Israeli gas masks with little NCB filters and all that stuff. I'm like, why'd you buy that? And he's like, well, I was watching this YouTube channel and they were talking about, you know, we're going to have a nuclear war and Russia's going to start tossing nukes and we're going to start tossing them. And I even got one. He found this, like, I guess, child-size one. And that's when I knew it had gone too far. You know? Because, I mean, this guy, great dude, super sweet guy and everything, but I'm like, this has got to stop, you know, at some point. Like, it couldn't possibly be healthy to, you know, just be this engaged in being scared all the time.
Yeah,
but he was like one of those that like legitimately was worried.
Well, I mean, yeah, because and that's another thing that I've butted heads with on some of the cool kids. And just for the record, I'm banned from all their channels. I can't make comments.
Oh, are you?
Oh yeah, it all happened the same day when I annoyed that one fella in particular. Suddenly I found that all the big channels had banned me. I couldn't comment on their videos anymore. I'm like,
oh, so they all talk and they all coordinate then. Is what you're saying, you know,
yeah,
in a roundabout
no game
way
being played there. Yeah, but and so, but heads with these dudes because I often say it. Keep it simple, right? The whole emergency preparedness, the whole firearms thing, the whole self-defense thing, all the stuff that we do comes down to some simple stuff. So if I have a bottle of water, that bottle of water is good for an earthquake. It's good for Red Dawn. It's good for the alien invasion. It's good for a nuclear war. You don't have to have different kinds of bottles of water for each thing. And I know that's a weird example, but does that make sense what I'm saying?
it does, yeah.
So when people say, you know, hey, I have to have this tool for this reason, and I have to have that tool for that reason, you go, no, man, tool A will work in situation B, right? And they don't want to say that because a lot of them are selling you shit. And I'm not trying to sell anything, if that makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, 5 years ago, a dude to say, this is the best Leatherman ever in the entire world. And then I'll give you my favorite one. My favorite one when I first got on YouTube was that ridiculous Olight.
Yeah, those used to be everywhere. That and bug out bags. Those two things.
So those that know will know. Every month, one con man, and he was followed by others that would do it, would put a video out. This is the best Olight ever. You need to get this one. And then the next month, oh, look, we have an even better Olight. It's better than the last one. And every month you would wait, because around the first week of the month, all the Olight commercials would come out. And you're like, wow, really? And but it did become a good indication of who was full of shit. Because if a guy was pushing you Olight and you got to looking behind the persona that they put on film, they're full of shit.
Well, like, you're probably one of the few to call out the bug out bag thing early on. That was interesting to watch people push that, because I guess the thinking was that, you know, people were going to, you know, if you found yourself in the path of danger, you were going to grab your backpack and go live out in the woods. And it's like, you would need some serious bushcraft skills to accomplish that feat, and probably, you know, some mules to carry all your stuff. And, you know, I don't think most people thought that one through. And then that became, you know, the get home bag, I guess. But, you know, like you're saying, you know, one of the, I guess, signs for people that were just kind of wanting clicks or trying to get subs was that, you know, early bug out bag video that people would put out.
Yeah, and I did one, but it wasn't a bug out bag. I don't, even today, I don't have a bug out bag, because nowhere in my planning is me, the wife, and kids putting on backpacks and walking into the woods to live. That's so far down on the list of options.
I always got the impression that what people were trying to, it seemed like they're trying to emulate what the military does. So, like, you know, you guys have loadouts. You probably have loadouts for, like, you know, 2, 3, 4 days maybe. But, you know, it seemed like people were trying to kind of emulate that at times. I don't know. I mean, what do you guys even carry in the military when you're, you know, going on deployment?
So, when I was in 1-4, we carried, I mean, besides, you know, our canteens and stuff, in our butt packs, we carried one broken down MRE and some water purification tablets if we got stuck somewhere, or if we had to escape and evade. That's what we carried. You know, we had compasses and stuff like that too, and, you know, our knives or whatever we had on us. But right. The bug out bag thing, I get why people are saying it, or were saying it, which I find absolutely hilarious that it's not a thing now. Because I'm not the only one that told these people who were in YouTube land before the rest of us, and then the rest of us show up and go, you guys are full of shit. And all of a sudden, you know, you don't see the bug out bag thing anymore. Because, like, when I was working, we had our stuff that we took to work. So in my car, even when I lived, I don't know, I lived 4 miles from the joint when I first started, right? I kept extra clothes. I kept extra food. I kept extra things in my car, because there may come a time, and it happened often, that I couldn't go home for 3 days or 4 days. I think the longest I ever went was 4 days before I went home. So I would have extra stuff. So that was just normal life to me, if that makes sense, right? And then when I moved down south, and then I realized I was separate from the house, I still had, you know, the extra uniform, the extra underwear, all that other good stuff, right, that I had when I was 4 miles, but now I was 66 miles from the house.
Oh, it's quite a ways, yeah.
Yeah, and then so now I have to go, wait a minute, I can't, it's not, moving down here was one of those life-changing things, because I left the small town I was from, where I know everybody, basically everything's within walking distance, you know, it's not a big deal. And then I come down here to the Los Angeles area, And my commute was 66 miles, both ways or whatever, right? So I had to plan for that. And it was just part of the lifestyle that we lived with that job. You had extra stuff with you. You always brought extra things. And okay, now I have to bring some extra things in case I need to walk home, right? And yeah, I would see some of these guys' bug out bags and be like, oh, that's a good idea. But you say things like, hey, do you got, a pair of boots with your bag? And some of these dudes were like, huh, what? I always have boots on. Okay, bro, cool, whatever. That was one of the first times I was like, okay, these guys really don't know what the hell they're talking about. But anyway, so it was a natural evolution. And like I was saying before, the whole let me throw on 100-pound bag and walk out into the freaking woods. Well, you've probably never carried a 100-pound bag.
It's a lot of weight. Yeah.
Yeah. And I until, my back decided it didn't like me anymore, I used to go run the hills all the time with a bag packed full of stuff. And when I went to the doctor and they said my back was messed up, they said, what do you do? And I mentioned that was my thing, right? That's when I would de-stress.
Right.
You were asking that earlier. I would de-stress. I'd go running with a pack on and get home and just be exhausted and didn't have time to think about all the other stuff. And the doctor said, yeah, stop it.
Well, I was reading I hike a lot. That's what I like to do. And I was reading this article. I guess this is true, but it was basically saying you probably shouldn't carry more than like 30% of your body weight in a bag,
Right?
because otherwise you're going to mess your back up. But I kind of, based on that, put together my own little bag for hiking, in case I'm out and I break my ankle or something, and I'm out there for a day or two, and I don't want to die of exposure. So I've got an MRE in there and some water for purification stuff, and a few other odds and ends just to keep me alive, I guess, in theory. But when I saw some of the stuff that, other people are putting in theirs, they've got like a hatchet and all this stuff. And I'm like, you're never going to carry all that anywhere.
Yeah. So there used to be, I don't know, categories, I guess. Like you had bushcrafter dudes, right? And their hobby, he uses big air quotes, was to go do bushcrafter stuff. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And I could see a use for that. And that's cool. All right. But then people said, oh, well, if you can't rub two sticks together, then you're not for real, whatever their version of real was. I'm like, yeah, man, if I'm in an emergency situation, I smoke. So I'm going to take this big lighter and I'm going to light a fire. And then I can go do something else instead of sitting there rubbing two damn sticks together. Okay. And that's some of the, I guess, reality that hopefully I've helped bring to the conversation. I don't carry two sticks in my bag, my get home bag. Is there lighters in there? Yeah. Is there a ferro rod? Yeah. If I can't do it between the lighters and the ferro rod, I'm probably going to die.
Guess you're out of luck.
Yeah. And then, I mean, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, like one of the things like I noticed about your channel, you also don't seem to have anything that I would really consider controversial or sensational or anything like that. But I guess some of the subject matter could be considered, like sensitive for some people because, we are talking about situational awareness and civil unrest and all kinds of stuff. And I guess my question is really more about censorship with YouTube, because sometimes what they'll do is they'll censor channels for a variety of reasons. And I think one of the main ones might be because they might look at a channel and deem them unfriendly to, advertisers. And there have been some examples of the years of channels either having content censored or even their channels permanently removed. And I think at some point, every content creator thinks about this. I mean, I have. But are you ever concerned that anything you might put on in one of your videos, YouTube could take issue with or possibly demonetize or deplatform you?
Oh, I've had videos demonetized, and
oh, have you?
Yeah. There's a couple of them that I can't even think of off the top of my head. But what I started doing was, and I am completely horrible at it, about getting pictures and videos when we're training, because I'm focused on training. So, you know, people were always like, hey, you know, your training videos kind of suck. Well, yeah, that's because I set a camera up in the corner and just left it running. Or what guys have been doing now is they've been pulling their cell phones out and recording for me, because
Oh,
that's
that's
not,
cool.
yeah, and I appreciate when they do it, but that's not my focus. My focus is the training, right? But I
Right.
found that, because two of the videos that got hit, and it wasn't a strike or anything, YouTube just said, hey, we can't monetize this, and you need to maybe, you know, do something else, was two training videos, which I thought was hilarious. And my last training video, they said it was limited monetization or whatever because of the subject matter. And I just asked for a review because it was funny. It was one of the shorts, right? So I had two shorts there that were completely approved, that were, you know, were firearms related. And then this third one that they're saying, oh, no, we need to look at it. Like, well, okay, cool. And of course, you know, they monetized it the next day, I guess, or whatever. But one of them, that one of the first videos I did was weapon safety, just how to load and unload. You know, if you find a gun laying there and
Hmm.
you're completely clueless, well, here's a rough idea how the majority of guns work and how you can make this item safe, right? Yeah, YouTube didn't like that. Didn't like that one at all. I had it somewhere. They sent me a little paragraph about how, you know, I was right there at the line of what they allow, and I'm going,
Really? Wow.
safely unload a weapon? Okay.
That's interesting because, I mean, they do seem to frown on anyone that has firearms related content in any of their channels. I mean, I guess a recent example, what's the guy in the hockey mask?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I think right up to the point his channel was removed, he had somewhere around 70,000 subs, and he had quite a bit of firearm related content. And I think he probably, you know, they probably went after him for some of the political stuff that he got into. But I was surprised that, you know, even his channel made it as long as he did, with, you know, kind of how they react to people who talk about firearms. So it's kind of interesting that they did that to you.
Well, that one, the first one, when I did the weapons unloading thing to make them safe, and this last one with showing people at the range, because I actually read, and that would be a shocking thing to do, I actually read YouTube's policy and all that. So as long as you're doing it in a safe environment, as in like on a range or something like that, they don't have a problem with it. And that's the part that a lot of guys mess up on. You have to be showing the weapons being used in a safe manner, and preferably on an indoor outdoor range. It says it right there in the policy. So if that's your thing, then you probably want to read the policy, right? And that fellow there, because, you know, trying to say names, if I had to wager, he had issues with something other than the YouTube going after him. I know that sounds good, like, you know, I'm the victim of the oppressive, tyrannical corporation. Well, no, because in my limited time on YouTube, I found something out. I found out people can report your videos because YouTube doesn't actively search like people think it does. That makes sense?
So you have to get on their radar, is what you're saying.
Right. And then they look, and I actually know a couple of people that have been involved with YouTube, and it's funny the stuff they say, and then I hear these people saying other stuff. So I know for a fact that people that may disagree with you are, what the word I'm looking for? Oh, they're cowards and pieces of shit. So instead of saying something to you, they'll just go report your videos. I woke up one day and I think 21 was the highest count that I've had of videos reported.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, you know,
YouTube's a weird game. I mean, I I haven't been doing it that long. A little over a year, I think. But it is interesting to kind of watch. It's also really interesting. I'm fascinated to talk to other people that do this as well, because there's a lot of people who share the kind of same or similar story, kind of like what you're saying, where someone will take issue with your channel and then they'll go report you and just cause a bunch of problems, and then that really just kind of snowballs into eventually getting kicked off or having your videos removed, which sucks because, I mean, if you're a content creator, you spend a lot of time creating this stuff.
Yeah, and then I know YouTube tries to say, okay, so I was telling people beforehand that through some people that I know, the larger channels, the ones with the more subs, they get a liaison, a helper, however you want to say it. And some of them have actually started to admit it lately, that they get somebody from YouTube that says, hey, Joe, you might want to angle this way, or hey, Joe, you might want to do this to get more, right? Whereas lowly, good for nothing peasants down here, we don't have that, right?
Right.
I know, and you just gotta trust me on this one, that those people will complain about other people. That channel this and that channel there and this, that, and the other. And they'll go, oh, well, let's go take a gander and see what they're doing over there.
Right.
That makes sense, right?
I've been, I mean, for that reason, I've been kind of just cautious about, people I talk to on YouTube and stuff like that, or even other content creators, because you never really, I mean, these are all just people on the internet. You don't really know them,
Right, right. No, yeah, and, so, I don't know. I just keep doing what I'm doing, and I watch YouTube send my videos to, like, people in Siberia who like cats. Like, right. Wow, really? Because that's not titled that way. It's not tagged that way. None of the things that they say matter. But I don't know. It, like I said, once I butted heads with people and made it quite clear that I was not part of their echo chamber, their knitting circle, their circle jerk. Yeah, suddenly my channel stopped growing, and I don't care. I'd rather have 100 folks that are getting something out of it than right. Lying, cheating, and stealing, from 10,000 people. So.
I mean, like, to me, it's supposed to be fun. I mean, for me, it's a hobby. I enjoy doing this. It's a lot of fun. I like doing the podcast stuff. It's fun to do this. But I guess when people start making money off of it and it gets serious, that's when maybe people change,
Yeah, I honestly, I'm not trying to make any money off of it. I just want information out there that could help somebody. And one of the reasons I keep, doing not just the teaching stuff, the training stuff, or the YouTube stuff, or, just talking to people, is it always seems like that one day when I'm like, okay, fuck this shit, I'm done. Right. I'll get an email from somebody being like, hey, this one thing you said helped me. And I'm like, damn, I got to keep going there because I helped somebody again. Fuck.
That's kind of how I felt about the situational awareness videos you did. Those actually helped me. I like those.
See, now I have to keep going. Thanks.
Well, because, I mean, like we were saying earlier, bad guys have tactics too. And, you kind of need to know how to counter those. And, it really does seem these days most people do have their head in their cell phones, and having something that you can look at where you can say, oh, I can practice situational awareness, with these, tools or whatever, I think is helpful. But, earlier you mentioned, considerations for when you're sitting in a restaurant. What about like a larger venue, like a sporting event or a concert? Are there any baselines that people can use for a large venue like that to identify if something's out of the ordinary?
Yeah. So, okay. And this goes along with what we've been talking about. How, unlike others, I could sit here and blow so much smoke up your ass right now. But here's what it comes down to: paying attention, having your head up, looking around. the same thing that if I'm sitting at the local restaurant or if I'm sitting in a great big, watching a concert or whatever, like when me and the wife went and saw Motley Crue and all those guys, I was still doing it. I was still looking around. I was still paying attention to who's around me and what was going on. And I caught a drunk fella before he fell and spilled beer on me and told him, this isn't where you're sitting, dork. You're down two more.
Right.
Oh, sorry, bro. So yeah, it's no big deal. But, at the same time, if I wasn't paying attention, he was about to spill his beers all over me. And then, we end up getting in some kind of confrontation because I got beer all over me. Instead of just saying, hey, stupid, move on down there. And I literally grabbed his beers before they spilled on me and said, head on down there, get to where your seat is. And of course, his wife was embarrassed as hell. But anyway, so yeah, there's no secret. There's no secret that I can, trademark and tell you that you have to buy it for me for $29.99 and 3 monthly installments, right? Same thing. Being situationally aware, knowing where the exits are, and knowing what normal is. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to an opera, it's not normal if somebody starts a mosh pit in front of the stage. But now if I'm at, insert favorite heavy metal group or whatever they're doing nowadays, and there's a mosh pit going on, for one, if you're from my generation, you go, that's got to be the biggest group of pussies I've ever seen going around in a circle. Because we used to go harder in the mosh. But if you see it there, you're like, okay, that's normal. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm out and about, even like, okay, say I'm at the local mall, right? And I'm walking or I'm in Costco or something like that. And then all of a sudden, everybody's running the opposite direction that I'm walking. Like, maybe something's going on. And I know that sounds like a silly example, but there recently was, not recently, I don't remember how long ago it was, there was the active shooter in an open air strip mall, I believe it was maybe Arizona. And the officer was talking to the mom and a mom and her boy. And, he was doing the good cop thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, yeah, stay out of trouble. And then all of a sudden somebody started yelling, somebody was shooting and blah, blah, blah. So here comes an officer. He's got his rifle out. He's running. He's yelling. He's screaming, right? And to watch the normal folks that he was going by, that you could see on his body cam, just oblivious that anything may be going on. Absolutely just fucking clueless. Because I don't know where I'm at and where most people live. You don't see an officer yelling and screaming. You don't hear gunshots, and you don't see him running at you with a rifle.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But even in that extreme thing, because what they do every day is not pay attention. So there's this saying, everybody goes to their highest level of training, right? If you have none, then that's where you're going.
Was it like that when you worked in the prison system where, one day just seems like a normal day and then you kind of, something seems off and something's about to kick off perhaps?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. When I first started, we would do the 4 p.m. count. So every day at 4 p.m., everybody gets counted. They got to stand up. You got to count them to make sure they're there, right? Make sure they're alive, breathing, ain't got no holes in them, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So as a rookie, when there's a little bit of downtime between 4 o'clock count and when you start to do the evening meal. And in that downtime, if you ever saw the old timers, and I mean, some of them are those big fat guys that everybody wants to make fun of and all that good shit. You see those guys stretching, you go, oh shit.
Trying to limber up for something.
Yeah, when the doors open back up, things are going to go bad, and it's because they got a feel for it, and then over time, did I develop that? Yeah. Anybody that's actually been doing the job, and I keep saying that because there's people that just fake it. They just, they go through their career faking it and they actually never do the job. But anyway, yeah, you could just tell there's things, some of it you can't articulate. You just have to feel it.
Mhm.
But there's other things, like the guy that usually would say hello to you every day, right? And all of a sudden he doesn't say hello to you that day, and makes a point of not looking at you while you're counting or whatever. You go, well, that's odd. Okay. And just little things like that, you know.
Well, I think
Um,
that probably translates into you actually just did a video about understanding protest dynamics.
yeah.
And, you know, you talked about, you know, some of the types of individuals you might encounter at, like, say, a protest. And, um, you know, I guess when you're out in a crowd, you know, like you said, if you're observing enough, perhaps maybe you can pick up some of those signs, you know, that something's about to happen.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Everyone is born with the ability to do it. So the awareness thing, and I really haven't gone into, I've said it a couple of times in different videos or whatever, but I've never really got into it. Everybody's born with the abilities to feel it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's just people don't listen to themselves, right? So a lot of times, you know, say something bad happens and, you know, somebody say, oh, I knew that was going to happen. Gosh, yeah, because you felt the vibe in the air. And so say, you know, for you're at a protest and people are just protesting, and then you see some folks getting too hot, you know, and you see somebody egging it on. You probably know, man, maybe we need to, like you said earlier, de-escalate this. Maybe it's just time to go home. You know, people are getting stupid. It's the analogy I use when I talk to people in person about it, the adults at least, is, you know, about 1 o'clock at the bar, and, you know, we're getting to last call and everybody starts looking around and you're going, okay, all the young males who aren't having any relationships this evening are getting a little off, and we should probably leave before they turn the lights on because some fights are going to start. And almost all the grown folks will go, oh yeah, I've been there. Exactly. So you
Right.
know what I'm saying. You know that, you know what normal is. You're paying attention, even if you're drunk. And all of a sudden, people are not being normal no more. And the little voice in your head says, go home. You know? So everybody has the ability to do that. But you can't do that if you're not being aware. And that means, you know, looking, hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, all that good stuff. But also, you got to be listening to that little voice inside your head, because it'll come tell you.
Well, your protest dynamics video, that reminded me we have an election coming up. And,
Yeah.
you know, just some of the things it talked about, you know, it made me wonder, I mean, do you think we'll potentially see any, you know, politically motivated protest or even violence during the next election cycle?
Okay, I gotta phrase it properly. I am not a gambling man, but if somebody wanted to bet me a lot of money that we won't see any violence, I would take that bet in a heartbeat.
That's a good way to put it.
Bad things are happening, bad things are coming, and I don't mean that in the fearmonger way. You can just see it and you can feel it. You know, everybody can feel it. Everybody can feel the division, which annoys the hell out of me. Um, the rhetoric coming from both sides is just beyond ridiculous. Like, seriously, I wish it was like the 80s and the 70s when I grew up, and a man could just walk up to another man and smack him upside the fucking head and tell him to shut the hell up, you know, because uh, some of these people and the things that they say and the things that they're firing folks up about, they just need somebody to walk over to them and go, smack them upside the head and be like, hey man, tell the truth or I'm going to keep hitting you. And, you know, when it was actually physical violence upon them, okay, I made this up. This is a lie. I'm manipulating this. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So since we can't do that nowadays, either way this goes, 90% sure. That'd be a good one. I want to say, like, you know, 95, but we'll give that 10% because there's always 10%. people are not going to be happy and violence will occur. Hence the reason these last couple videos, the next couple videos I'm doing are all civil disturbance, riots, please summer of love again, you know?
Well, you did a video about the rules of engagement, which I thought was pretty good because, you know, the general public probably doesn't have a good foundation for that. You know, I mean, you're working in law enforcement and, you know, people that live in that world, you know, you guys probably have, you know, actually a defined set of rules. But going back to the summer of love type thing, I mean, what if you are just a regular person coming home and, you know, it's a kind of a traffic stop scenario where there's a bunch of people blocking the road and you can't turn around. There is no way to de-escalate. And, I don't know. What do you do in that type of situation if you can't turn around and leave?
Going back to what we were saying about, you know, con men on YouTube land or just jackasses that don't know anything.
Right.
The scenario you gave there, you know, most guys are, well, I want to stack bodies. I'm
Right.
going to get my truck gun out. I'm going to start shooting them all in the forehead. And people hate when I use that accent, but it fits, so it's great. That's what I mean about getting people in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Because when little Johnny goes, well, you know, Your Honor, this is what they told me on YouTube that I could do. The YouTube guy that told him that he could just start slaying, you know, the people that he doesn't agree with isn't going to come in court and say, well, yes, he can, you know. I see too many jackasses. I could sit here and just name off the jackasses in YouTube land that say that. And again, they're not going to be there in court to say anything on behalf of the person that they got in trouble. Okay. So I've been living under use of force guidelines or rules of engagement since, here, we'll give you a quiz. What age did I start living underneath all that?
17. Well, you
Yes, sir.
joined the Marines when you, well, were 17, and then your 18th birthday, you were in the Marines.
Yeah. So I've been doing it since I was 17, and I'm a little bit older than that now. So let's take the scenario you're saying. You're driving down the street, traffic stops in front of you, especially for where I'm at in Southern California and the Los Angeles area and all that. And I could just see the people right now. Oh, you shouldn't be living there. Yeah, shut up. Anyway, traffic stops all the time, right? So what are you going to do? You're going to stop and go, oh, what the hell's going on? And what's the first thing you got to do? You got to get aware of the situation. Oh, I love the way I just tied that in. So, you know, you're going to look in front of you.
Right.
Maybe you change the radio station. Maybe you check on your cell phone and there's an app for traffic or whatever, right? Your GPS thing, whatever. And, you know, it says, oh, there's a car wreck. All right, cool. I'm stuck here in a car wreck. But now, as they've been doing, or they were doing, when they start blocking the freeways off and stuff, right? They go walking out there and all that good stuff. Can you just run them over? No, you can't. And everybody, I'll just push the gas pedal down. Okay, drive yourself to the nearest police station and turn yourself in. And I can say that in a smart ass way, but I can also say that in the, if you actually had to do that, that would probably be a good idea. But anyway, it comes down to what you can sit in front of a jury of your peers and say that a confident human being would agree is justified. Does that make sense? So if I'm sitting in the car and the protesters go by and they shake my car a little bit and they rattle my car and maybe they bang on the hood or something, you know, I can't justify using force, because if the crowd just goes past me, then no harm, no foul. You know, and somebody, oh, they screwed up my paint job, and they put a dent in my hood, and does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because a regular human being is not going to say, well, no, he's justified to jump out with a machete and start hacking everybody because they put a dent in his car. Like, come on, man, get real, right? So then you have to go into, you know, what's an appropriate use of force? Well, to me, and what I tell folks is, You're good until they break your window or they open your door. Because until then, you're sitting in an eggshell, right? And as long as you're inside that eggshell, you're cool. Nobody, physically, you're all right. There's nothing going on. But when they break the window and they reach in to grab you, or they open the car door and they try to pull you out, because that eggshell that's been around you has been broken and they've escalated the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say escalate is because justify your actions by what they're doing, if that makes sense. So guy breaks your window, well, now you're a physical threat to me coming through the window, so now I can do something. And you don't have to wait till they get their hands on you or whatever, right? Guy is reaching in to grab you through the window, and you reach over and punch him in the mouth, and then he goes away. That's good. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean when they break your window, you start shooting them? No, because what if they break the window and just stand there?
Right.
They haven't broke that imaginary barrier between you and them. Does that make sense?
It does.
There was a situation where the guy was sitting in his truck, and one of these punk ass little Antifa dudes brought a rifle up, and the guy inside the truck won the quick draw contest, and he shot the dude and killed him.
Yeah, I heard about that. That guy, it was like in Texas or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I don't remember all the details, but at the time I sat down and I read everything I could on it just to see what was going on. Completely justified shooting.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to remember, whatever actions you do take, you can be completely justified. They can still take you to court.
Right.
I don't, off the top of my head, I don't remember if that guy got convicted or not.
I thought that he did. And, people were
I'm leaning that way too.
Pretty upset about it. And I think that's why I think he got convicted, is because I thought I remember people being kind of pissed off about it.
Yeah. It was a completely justified shooting. So when you're in that situation, the last thing you want to do is start brandishing a weapon,
mm-hmm.
right? And quite honestly, that's deadly force, and that should be your last resort. Your windows get broke open, your door gets pulled open, something like that. If you can, that's when you start letting the car roll away. Notice right. I said roll away, don't stomp on the gas, mm-hmm. right? Because in most cars, you can take your foot off the brake and it'll start rolling forward, or you can just tap the gas a little bit and it'll start rolling forward. And just roll your way out of it, if that makes sense. Yeah.
The scenario you gave about, someone breaking your window, and then things escalating, actually happened where I live. Not, I think it's a few years ago now, but these two guys, one guy was in a car and the other was in a pickup truck, and they got into kind of an altercation about a parking spot. And the guy in the car pulled, he was about to pull into the spot, and the truck blocked him. And then the guy in the truck got out, and he grabbed a steel pipe out of his bed of his truck, walked over to the car, and they exchanged words. And then one thing led to another, and the guy with the steel pipe broke the car window on the driver's side. And he didn't stop there. He broke the window, and then he was going to, hit the driver again. And this guy in the car happened to be a concealed carry permit holder, and he shot him, killed him. And police showed up, asked him what happened, and he said, he broke the window, and, he started to, try and hit me again. So that's when I shot him, and they said, okay. And they ended up letting him go. No one ever pressed charges or anything. The DA didn't go after him or anything like that. And I guess in that situation, they decided it was a, clean shoot.
Yeah, because the guy outside of the vehicle had a pipe, and that brings it to the level of lethal force.
Right.
So, like I was saying a second ago, when they escalate it, you can meet that. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally does. Yeah.
I'll touch on it briefly. You can go higher than what they're going, but for most people, don't. Does that make sense? Because you got to understand how that works, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Some people would say, well, you know, in that situation, why didn't you just drive away? Why not this? Why not that? Da, da, da. And that's what people have to remember. Am I saying don't ever use force? No, because sometimes you have to. Just remember that physical violence and or lethal force is the last resort.
I would imagine those situations are even harder to navigate when everyone's just amped up emotionally, you know, because you're not, you know, you may not necessarily be, you know, thinking straight, you know, because
Yeah,
you're just,
we
you
had
know,
a couple incidents recently out this way. Back during the Summer of Love, they went and they blocked part of the freeway off here, and a lady was sitting in her car, and she had a bumper sticker that other people didn't appreciate. So they started hooting and hollering at her.
mhm.
Now, the people are several feet away from her car, you know, calling her this, that, and the other. She rolls her window down and pepper sprays them and then drives off
Mhm.
and tries to tell the police that she was in fear of her life. It's like, no, there's video. They were like 10 feet away, and you could have drove away at any time before then. You chose to escalate it by using the pepper spray, right? And you know, she didn't understand why she couldn't do that. It's like, because you need to understand that's not how use of force works. And then, you know, we had another incident that literally was just down the road here, where the Jewish folks and the Palestinian folks were across the street from each other expressing their views. And a fella walked over, and some kind of physical confrontation took place. And one of the Jewish fellas fell down, hit his head. Well, 2 hours later, he died from hitting his head. And the Palestinian dude was like, well, you know, I wasn't trying to kill him, this, that, or the other. Well, that's cool, but it doesn't matter because you went over there and you got physical with somebody else. And this, you're taking it to that next level, caused this dude to fall down, which caused him to die. And they're bringing the guy up on charges for it because you can't not bring him up on charges for it. Does that make sense?
Right.
Because, yeah, you can disagree, since we're talking about, you know, the whole civil disturbance stuff. That guy there, he had to say, okay, I am leaving my group. I am walking across the street over there, and I'm going to confront that fella right there. Well, why? Does that make sense? Like, you could just stay on your side of the street and hoot and holler all day long, and everybody gets to express their First Amendment, and everybody gets to go home.
Yeah, it really is kind of interesting, just kind of watching things right now, just watching society and just all of it. Really, it's a little unnerving because, you know, I think you're right. There probably is a good chance that, you know, something might happen, you know, sometime around election time. And, you know, you've also got the, you know, Israeli conflict going on. So people are pretty upset about that, and they're protesting about that as well. So, you know, maybe we'll end up seeing, you know, a few different protests for different reasons going on at once.
Yeah, no, totally agree with that. No, that's why I decided, you know, this last couple of videos or whatever, that I'm going to try to get ahead of the power curve and put information out there for folks, because it doesn't do people any good to be reactive to whatever's going on. And then all of a sudden now they want to find out, oh, what do I do if there's a riot?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I figured we know there's a high probability of this coming. So I'm going to start putting information out now that if folks are paying attention, hopefully they never need it, but if they do need it, it could help them if and when that situation comes up.
Well, on that note, we've done really well. We've made it up to 2 hours. We're at the 2 hour, 2 minute mark. So perhaps this is a good point to wrap up the episode, and maybe we can do this again sometime.
Okay.
But I really enjoyed our conversation, and you know, I want to thank you again for taking time out of your day to do this. I really do appreciate it, and Also, thank you to the listeners. So for anyone interested in checking out more content from Corsair's Trainer, you can find the channel on YouTube by searching for @Corsair's Trainer. And your website is also the same name. It's CorsairTrainers.com. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you. And that's all for now. Thanks for listening.
There is a signal broadcast every second of every day through our television sets.
Mark my words, AI is far more dangerous than nukes.
Science and technology are propelling us forward at accelerating rates.
Engines throttling up, 3 engines now at 104%.